Hey everybody, it's Nathan and my wonderful wife Jess Seelove with another episode of You Might Be Autistic If. So Jess, why do we do You Might Be Autistic If?
So we do You Might Be Autistic If videos because autism comes with a lot of different behaviors, and the combination of behaviors and sensory sensitivities and a whole bunch of other things, which means that every person who is autistic has different presentations.
Yep, and we like to make some fun out of it. We like to try to laugh at some of our silly quirks and...
Or commiserate with some of our challenges.
Absolutely, and sometimes even give some advice when we get a comment that we feel like we can offer some insight on.
Fun fact, autistics only give solicited or unsolicited advice.
That is true. That is a fact. Also, one other thing that I wanted to briefly mention, in the last video that I posted, I talked about how the YouTube algorithm was starting to delete comments with the word autism in it. It's looking like that might be fixed now because a bunch of people had tested it on that video and it seems to be going through. So if you are commenting You Might Be Autistic Ifs on this video, you probably don't need to use the ellipsis like some people had been doing on the previous video, but you know, do whatever you need to. Like, let's keep testing it and let's hope this algorithm has sorted itself out.
Yes, and if one of your comments does disappear and you believe it was appropriate and therefore should not have disappeared, let us know. And if it is because of the word autistic or autism, hopefully we can report that.
Yeah.
But it does seem like maybe YouTube has addressed this issue.
Yeah. And also, even if it does get deleted off of the YouTube comment wall, it still does go to my email. So the ones that we're going to be reading today, you actually won't be able to find on a YouTube comment wall because I've put them in, because they're in my email. So Jess, are you ready?
Yeah, stoked.
Yep. Standard disclaimers. Just because you relate to some of these doesn't automatically mean that you are autistic, and just because you don't doesn't automatically mean that you are. You met one autistic?
Oh, you met one autistic.
That was very well seen. Also, we apologize if we pronounce anybody's name incorrectly. Please feel free to correct us in the comments, and we will hopefully try to get it right next time that you comment. So, let's get started.
Anne Verican says, you might be autistic if you repeat the last word of a sentence someone is telling you without remembering what the sentence was about.
Well, who calls so loud?
Nathan does that, and it's a source of conflict in our coupledom quite frequently.
Yeah. Because
I'll say, are you even listening to what I'm saying? Knowing he might have zoned me out. And he'll say, yes, I was listening, and then repeat something adjacent to what I was talking about, but not actually the thing. And it makes me more angry than if he just said, I spaced out, you have to repeat yourself.
I assume is a little bit closer to what they were talking about. I often do this thing where if someone says a sentence to me, I will repeat the last few words of the sentence in my head. So like if someone says, how are you today, Nathan? I might be thinking, today, Nathan, today, Nathan, today, Nathan. And then I might miss the rest of the conversation because I've been repeating that in my head.
I do sometimes repeat back what someone has asked me without understanding what they asked me. I know that used to happen quite more frequently when I was a child. I remember distinctly one time where my mom told me to turn the TV up, and I just repeated blankly, turn the TV up. Yeah. And she thought I was sassing her because I just was not taking it in and just repeating it.
This next one's from Dr. Mendo. And remember, if you care about another human being, you might be autistic.
I know that that's a very open statement, but I do feel that because I do hear other people sort of take an attitude of I got mine, so I don't worry about other people. And I've known a lot of autistics who actually care about things being fair or accessible for other people, and it's about like the rule of if I have access to this or I don't have access to this and other people do, I should, the sort of sense of there has to be justice in the world. Yeah.
And also I think that I think another reason why Dr. Mendo said this is because there is the assumption that autistics don't feel empathy or that they don't express empathy, which makes people think that autistics don't care about other people. But as I've kind of talked about on this channel before, there are different types of empathy. You know, there's cognitive empathy and there's affective empathy. Cognitive empathy is simply about determining whether or not you know what a person is thinking or what they need. And when it comes to autistics and neurotypicals, autistics might have trouble doing that with neurotypicals. But when it comes to affective empathy, that's the desire to give the appropriate response, to which autistics actually have a lot of affective empathy.
And that's been your lecture for the day.
Yeah.
Nathan has finished with his classes a full week ago, and so he's ready to get back to lecturing people.
Yeah.
Maximus Prime, GSD, says, you might be autistic if when talking to someone you think you are being nice, but then the person you are talking to says you should probably stop talking because you're being rude. Yeah, that's just the standard bafflement that I think a lot of autistics experience, which is, especially if someone doesn't know you, thinking that you're rude for so many reasons. Apparently you can do so many things that are considered mean without actually insulting someone or harming them. Your tone can be mean or sassy or condescending or arrogant or superior. Apparently.
Yeah, or you might even, like, if you, like, wave your arm the wrong way, you know, that can be considered mean.
Maximus Prime GSD still says, you might be autistic if you are so concerned with something bad happening that you over-prepare and bring way more than what you need because you never know what could happen. I cannot pack a suitcase without about 3 different kind of contingency outfits or, you know, clothing items. I can't do it.
Growing up, my parents always teased me because whenever I would come back from college, I would have a lot of stuff with me. And the thing is, I had a logical reason for each thing that I had.
To what they were referring, Nathan has what he calls an overnight bag that, I'm not kidding when I say, every time he went like to college or home for spring break, he would put his entire wardrobe in this one overnight bag. I kept trying to explain to him, it's not an overnight bag if you can fit your entire wardrobe. Okay. And yes, it was.
In my defense, I was packing for 2, me and my service dog. In my defense.
You forgot her bowl half the time.
Well, but I usually...
And she wears her other clothes.
Let's move on.
And the third one from Maximus Prime GSD. You might be autistic if you can't sleep at night because you're busy planning the rest of the month day by day. I think a general, overactive. I don't have just that, but I think a general like overactive need to organize once you actually lie down for the night is a trap that many autistics fall into. The best I got for you is maybe try a meditation app. Hear me out. I don't love meditation. I find it very difficult, which is why a meditation app that I put on, you can choose different durations, like 8 minutes, 30 minutes. Some of them are music. Some of them are someone saying, breathe in. I find that helpful some nights when I'm having trouble getting to sleep.
Yeah.
Also, bedtime routines.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite when it comes to planning because I don't really... I
don't plan.
I barely plan for the next day. All right, this next one is from Tamashi88. You might be autistic if your special interest involves real people, actors, musicians, comedians, etc., and you make a comment on their social media that you don't expect a response, but proceed to freak out when they reply.
I mean, who would expect a celebrity to respond?
Yeah. See, what's interesting with me is, like, whenever I do that, which I don't do that very often, but whenever I do that, I always, like, spend a lot of time working on the comment, proofreading it, and then they never respond, even though I spent all of this time on this really well-thought-out response.
Yeah, but they never asked you for your response, so...
Oh, I know. I'm not saying that I feel... I'm not saying that I'm offended by it.
Do you want to talk about it some more?
No.
E. Campbell, 947... says, you might be autistic if you refuse to eat carrots out of the same bowl as you've had apples or pears in.
Totally understand that.
If it was... if you're saying that it hasn't been washed. I guess if you have like separate bowls in your house where it's like, this is my apple bowl, this is my pear bowl, this is my carrot bowl, I think that's a little more idiosyncratic, but you know, whatever.
I think that's great. Having a specific bowl for every single fruit and every single vegetable, that sounds great. I wish I had that. I wish you would let me have that.
If you get rid of your rooster dish side, we'll talk.
Not gonna happen.
Oh, I have a whole lot of food preferences and needs. And I know growing up, I actually liked those little kid plates where they had the separations so that my food wouldn't touch each other. I also find it thoroughly disgusting when, and I've noticed it seems to happen more frequently with older adults, not trying to judge a whole generation, but we know.
Yeah, she does.
Where they will have, you know, like a supper maybe, and then on the same plate, put dessert. Like, you know, they'll finish it off and then put dessert on there. And it's not that I want to be wasteful and wash a whole bunch of dishes, but I can't eat my fruit on top of mashed potatoes, Grandma. So, more from E. Campbell 947. You might be autistic if you can't eat something because it is too salty or greasy. Again, food preferences. Yeah. I find certain textures and smells overwhelming with food, but I know for some autistics they prefer really, really bland food because or I wouldn't say really bland food, but maybe blander than people might expect because the flavor, the taste is just too intense. And also that could just be personal preference.
Yeah, I love greasy food.
I know you do. Or not see why you should go 4 hours away to watch your own dogs while your parents help with the grandkids while their parents are moving, since you can watch them at home without driving 4 hours away. So
I'm a little bit confused about the logistics of that.
I think that that's more of a sort of like, if you were to make it broad, it's more of you see a logical path forward, and everyone else is telling you have to do something else because of like consideration or maybe politeness, and you're just saying, but it makes more sense for us to do it this way. And I think that is, again, another instance where people think maybe autistics are rude because they're saying, you know, oh, well, I don't mind, say, watching your dogs, but you should bring them to my house. I don't see why I should have to drive all the way over there just because you're going somewhere else. I can kind of see that. I've been in similar instances where it seems like it's a lot to ask someone on top of a favor.
All right, the last one for today is from Carolyn Rollinghoff. You might be autistic if you binge watch your favorite show for the past 20 years and know every line.
Y'all, this is me in Mad Men.
Yeah, she keeps doing that.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's me with Skyrim. So like I
you know all the quests and the different
that's the funny thing. So there are so many side quests in Skyrim and like so many different, like it's a type of game where you just do not run out of content, and I know pretty much every voice line from every character because I have like 3,000 hours on it.
That's a lot. I am not an autistic who can math in my head. That's 125 days. That's a third, roughly.
Wow.
A third of the year.
Wow. That's amazing.
I am amazed. Yeah, I think that's a really common, it kind of overlaps with like autistic special interest and routine, sort of, where there is a thing that you watch that brings you comfort or joy, and so you watch it over and over again. I have done that with several shows over my life, or movies.
All right, well, that is all of the ones we have time for today. Thank you once again so much for all of you that have watched, and all of you that participated, all of you that posted up "You might be autistic if" comments.
Yes, especially thank you to the people who were trying to troubleshoot the issue with the YouTube algorithm, and who also gave us information about what was happening. That matters, that helps. For other people to figure it out, because in something like this, it's not like YouTube is very obvious in saying, by the way, if you have autism in your channel, in your comments, or autistic, we're going to remove it or delete it. So thank you for passing that on and trying your best to Maybe it drew attention to it by putting so many comments with it. Maybe not, but at least somebody was able to get them to look at that closer.
Maybe. And if you have any suggestions for You Might Be Autistic gifts, feel free to comment those down below, and hopefully we'll be able to read them in a video in the future. So that's today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like, a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check out some of my other stuff, and if you want to support the channel in other ways, support me on Patreon.
And remember, if you might be autistic, if you, just like many people, have sensory issues with wearing a mask in the grocery store, and that's an essential trip you have to do, and if you, like me, have respiratory issues where, especially when it is humid and hot, breathing through a mask is absolutely ghastly, and yet you still wear a mask because you kind of care about humanity, you might be autistic.
You just might.